Okay, welcome back for our final episode in our NHD topics discussion. I'm your host, Mr. Richards, and we are talking about episode 6 here. This is the Civil War. Don't forget that our theme, as always, has been conflict and compromise this year. So keep that in mind as you're choosing your topic. Also, don't forget that we are choosing our topics from our 6 eras, from the early Native Americans all the way up through Civil War. We have done all 5 now, and we have one more to do. This is the Civil War topics. These are just suggestions that I like, to get you thinking. And there's, as with all the other eras, there's so much more you can dive into. But this should just get you brainstorming a little bit. All right, let's dive into it. First one I have is the Battle of Fort Sumter. I think this is a great topic. You're at the beginning of the war. This is the first aggression by the South, by the Confederacy, against um, against the Union. They had already seceded, but now it was time for the battles to begin. So you could look at the conflict, how this led up to it, what caused the South to secede, what caused them to use violence in this occasion. Why was there no chance for them to compromise, to stay a part of the Union, to not leave, to make that choice to secede? So I think Fort Sumter is a perfect topic for beginning of the Civil War, both dealing with conflict, of course, but the breakdown of compromises, breakdown of earlier agreements. You could look at how the compromise of 1850 and earlier compromises had broken down to get to this point. Number 2. This one hits close to home. This is our Baltimore riot of 1861. I like to call it the Pratt Street riots. That's what it's really called, the Pratt Street riots. So you have this fight between Union soldiers coming down Pratt Street, and they meet Southern Confederate sympathizers right in McKeldin Square in Baltimore. And it's some of the first bloodshed of the Civil War. And it really goes to show how divided Baltimore is at this time. Really pro-Northern and pro-Southern sympathies clashing right in the middle of the town. So I think this is a great one if you want to pick a local topic, a Maryland topic, because you could look at the conflict between both sides. You could look at the conflict in Baltimore City, between the pro-North, pro-South clashing in the city. You could look at the aftermath where Maryland has to decide, are they going to secede from the Union, and then what are they going to fight back on Washington? What issues are they going to fight back? Because they're not going to agree with Washington on everything. For instance, Maryland gets put under military lockdown control, and they hate that. So you could really look at the divisions in the state. What are their decisions here? Are they going to compromise to stay with the Union? Or, how does the Pratt Street riot really show the conflict brewing and the decisions Maryland has to make, being a border state, and, their overall goal trying to remain neutral in this whole Civil War conflict. So I like the Pratt Street riots, especially for local Baltimore history. Number 3, we have another riot. We have the New York City draft riots. This is 1863. This one is a really good one, again, because you can really look at society dealing with the Civil War. You've got Irish immigrants mostly going up against, African Americans throughout the city. It's a big, like, almost race war in the city. They start rising up, and the whole thing starts because of the draft. And there's a lot of people who aren't that excited to fight for Lincoln, and the draft comes around, and you could pay your way out of the draft if you had the money, but no one had the money to do it. So all these people are going off, and they're seeing, lots and lots of people are dying. The death toll is high, and so people start taking it out on the African Americans in the city, and we have this humongous riot. 200 people die. I think it lasts like 2 or 3 days. So if you're looking for something for conflict, this is a great one, because when we think Civil War, we think battles, but this is a conflict that's happening in a community, in a city, and they're dealing with issues other than just the Union and the Confederacy soldiers. So I like this one for conflict, definitely during the Civil War time. This one I thought was kind of wild. I thought of this one late, thinking of wintertime. So for much of history, when it became wintertime, both sides, both armies would take a break, and they would not fight during the wintertime. And the roads are bad, and it's cold, and you can't move your armies, and you're trying to keep your supplies. And so this has been going on for, ages. But I think it'd be cool, just me thinking kind of randomly, how interesting it'd be to do a topic on this. And you could either do it with the Civil War, or you could do it with, the Revolutionary War too. What was there any unwritten agreement to not fight during the winter? Like, how did people know not to fight during the winter? Was it just something you just didn't do? Did you actually talk about when you would stop fighting? You could talk about if anybody broke that compromise. Did someone actually do any actions during the wintertime when there was supposed to be no fighting? The Civil War and the Revolutionary War is known for spying, so you could talk about spies. Did they act, during the wintertime? So this is just a random topic I thought would be kind of interesting. The compromise to not fight during the winter, and what else is going on during that time, during this conflict. All right, that is our fourth topic. My fifth topic is the African American soldiers during the Civil War. I think this is fascinating. You can look at, them joining after the Emancipation Proclamation. You can look at the conflicts that they have to deal with inside the Union Army. Uh, they're going to deal with racism, and they're going to deal with, all kinds of mistreatment. And so you can really dive into the different conflicts they have to overcome as they try to fight for the Union. Then you can even go into the battles that they go into and other aspects of that. So I think if you're looking for an African American history one, this one is a great one, looking at African Americans in the Civil War, especially the 54th Massachusetts Infantry. Number five. No, six. Sorry, number six. This one I like. This is a really good one in my opinion. Sherman's March to the Sea. He is going to use total war. Near the end of the war, he is going to try to crush the South by going through southern towns and in Georgia and just totally destroying, just burning everything, crops, livestock, barns, fences, fields, everything, tearing up railroads, all this stuff. So you could look at Sherman, you could do a background on Sherman and see how did it get to this point where he thought total war was going to work. And you could see, was that the only choice to use at the time? Because this is really going to break the back of the South and really lead them towards winning the Civil War, the Union. So what caused them to get to this point where they were so uncompromising with the South that they were just going to start, destroying everything, not just troops, not just, resources, but all of the South, the communities and everything. So looking at how uncompromising Sherman was and how that led to a resolution of the Civil War conflict, both uncompromising and conflict there. Lastly, Civil War, I think the 13th Amendment is a great one to do. The 13th Amendment is not going to be easily passed. Lincoln is going to push for it, and a bunch of Republicans in Congress are going to push for it, but not all Republicans. So what you could look at is the deal making that goes on to try to get this thing passed. Do they have to promise people stuff? Do they have to change their language to get people to vote for it? So looking at the different ways people, were conflicting ideas in Congress and what they had to do to compromise to get the necessary votes to get the 13th Amendment, which eventually is passed, and that abolishes slavery. That is one of the crowning achievements of Lincoln's presidency. Winning the Civil War, and then the cherry on top was the 13th Amendment. So this is a great topic to look at congressional fights, the conflict there, and then the compromises made to get this historic amendment to the Constitution passed. So, as always, there is so much to do with the Civil War. You can do all kinds of different things with it. This is you could look at the North, the South, whatever you want to do. I think just explore the Civil War, check out some stories, check out the Library of Congress. There's a lot of stuff on that, and definitely consider doing something with the Civil War because there is a lot available. All right, guys. This is my last of the series of videos. I've got one more video after this where I'm going to do my top 10 topics I think are great for this year's theme. And I will see you back then for our last episode. Have a good one.